Welcome to the Content Survival Guide podcast, where we'll be sharing our personal stories from streaming, various perspectives, and a deep dive into what we've come across during our journeys of creating content.
I'm Gemini.
And I'm Scruffy. Welcome to episode 2. Why do you want to stream? And for this episode, we'll be going back and forth talking about some of our past insights of what drew us to streaming. It's definitely going to be different from person to person. I imagine some people may think that streaming is what they want to do, and it may or may not be, in their eyes, easy, but they might think, oh, this could be something that I could do to make a lot of money. And so I'm definitely going to throw out that's an interesting misconception. Sure, it could lead to something like that, but I think people that go in with that as a mentality quickly find out that there's a lot more involved, and then some of those people may not be driven to continue. But I think we can start off by maybe going back a little further. And Gemini, what's your thoughts on why do you want to stream? What does that mean to you? And what's brought you into the interest of streaming?
Yeah, so we've been doing content creation here for a while now, with the journey of getting started on Mixer quite a few years ago now. We've been total of 4 years. I mean, I guess you can call it 4 years. Really 3 years of fully committing to, hey, I'm gonna make content. I want to make streaming content. This is what I want to do. And so it's a question that you have to ask yourself. That's not just a simple one sentence answer, and it's not something you just wake up and have an answer to right away. So it definitely takes time as well. But why do you want to stream? This is kind of like just the basic softball question to find your personal reason, purpose, motivation to dedicate time and work effort to creating a channel and creating content, whether it be YouTube, Twitch, or just anything, any kind of content. A personal story for me is I don't know. I watched some streams. Streaming was very new to me from the very beginning. I haven't been watching streams like a super long time, and then one day decided like, hey, I'm gonna take a jab at this. It was more like just getting introduced to all of it all at once. I got introduced to Mixer at PAX South, and they were basically it wasn't Mixer yet; it was just known as Beam, and there was just basically they were doing a showcase and they were showing interactive streaming. And me and my best friend, we went to listen, hear them out, see what they were talking about, and that was kind of the door opening to this whole world of what content creation is, and as far personally to what streaming is. And so it was kind of just funny. It was something that had my interest in, and from like day one, I was very interested to just learn more about it and learn how to do it, and that kind of built up my personal motivation, my personal acceptance to, hey, I need to I want to learn a lot of this stuff to just get the basics down to just finally one day hit this go live button. And it's funny because at the I didn't know you could make any. There was no there was zero mindset of like a financial gain at all to content creation. To me, it was literally like, hey, I don't know how I even do this. I don't know how I could make any kind of content and be entertaining where someone would even be willing to like watch it. um and so with that day one mindset of like, well, I just want to play games. I just want to share a passion that I have with gaming and try to make whatever that is different from everyone else that's doing same content, if that kind of makes sense. So for me personally, it was just I want to share my love for gaming, my love for the industry, and really relative to the Fallout franchise. So uh, pretty much during the time, man, I mean, I've been a gamer forever. I was really into the Fallout franchises, and at the time of this whole introduction to Mixer, I was really into the mod community with Fallout 4. Really heavily invested into the modded community, and so I was like, well, they kind of went hand in hand for me. I wanted to try to like, well, maybe there's people that haven't seen this exact content. Maybe there's people that are interested in this modding community that isn't super mainstream, and sure enough, that's what I wanted to do. So the question is, well, why do you want to stream? My answer to that was it turned into, well, I would love to share my passion for this modding community and somehow try to make content that is different from other things and maybe introduce people to the modding community or maybe show something that they haven't seen before. And that's how I did my day one stream. And what is your story? How did you get into this streaming world?
So it's interesting because it doesn't fall too far from your story. Even though, yes, I came from Mixer and then went on to Twitch. Before there was Mixer for me, there was D Live, which is a story in itself. And then before there was D Live, there was Twitch again. I originally started on Twitch solo, then tried with a few friends to do a group thing. But before any of that, the question of why did I want to stream, ironically, came around the time of Fallout 4 as well. I would say one of my first streams was of Fallout 4, and then eventually even did a 24-hour Fallout stream. And that was
Amazing.
something that it was around that time. I had a lot of fun with that game and wanted to also share the fun with others. I like the way you're kind of phrasing, you're sharing your passion and jumping into something like the mods and sharing that with the community and seeing if others are experiencing the same thing or they learning with you, and then to think about learning different things in the game, even to keep it more relevant to our streams today. There's plenty of times people are coming into our, let's say, streams and letting us know certain things that we might not have known. So at a very early point, it was kind of like, let me see if I can learn with others, share fun with others. I kind of just wanted to test it out in the beginning. I had a few friends who also were thinking of streaming, and then we're like, yeah, we'll start it up. We can at least see each other's streams. We can get each other's points of views when playing certain games. We can share in the laughs. And it kind of was more communal in the beginning. And then let's say it's evolved over time. But the whole idea of kind of sharing laughs, learning with others, learning from others, and then again, sharing that fun and passion of like different games that I've been checking out over the past so many years has really driven me to continue doing that. And then in terms of me sampling streaming in the beginning on Twitch, whether it was solo or communal, that was kind of like my early stages. I was also in a, let's say, busier time in my life and didn't really know how much was in, let's say, invested into streaming and how much you would need to dedicate. So that kind of opened my eyes with a lot of stuff. But then down the road came back and said, I want to do these things now that I understand more about streaming. I still want to continue with that, let's say, push, that push and searching for that like passion of sharing gaming with others. Um, so I would say that's a good perspective for both of us. Ironically, yes, Fallout 4 is kind of at a root of both of it, but I would say not just in the beginning, over time. Now let's kind of look a little further in. Has that initial, let's say, passion or drive changed and evolved into other things? So I think it has for both of us, and I think things like, let's say, community building over time becomes more of like, okay, I want to create something. Um, so I would say for me, after a little point of streaming and starting to establish more of myself, whether it was on previous platforms or now, um, looking to build these larger communal things. Fallout Now 76 is a big root of both of our communities, and being able to share and grow that over time and then do even more over time is something that obviously I didn't expect in the beginning. When I first started in the beginning, looking to play multiplayer games and find like the right games that could be a shared experience was, let's say, another why did I want to stream? What else did I want to accomplish while streaming? So I would turn around and say, what how has that shaped your streaming? Again, I imagine you have similar answers to this, but what
Yeah,
else?
no, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. Your comments on kind of what can you share with the community? So, day one, you're asking yourself, well, why do I want to do this? Well, at the end of the day, like you gotta kind of understand what streaming is, right? Like or how streaming works for a perspective versus like working on YouTube. But it's all kind of it's similar in the fact that, well, how can you make content that other people would enjoy, or how can you get other people invested into the content that you're making? And I think we're both very community driven with both of our streams, and I feel like we both share that same idea from like where we were day one. And now where we are today, I feel like we're both very, even though things have changed. I mean, we talked last episode about failing, learning from failure, and using our quote unquote fails as to keep moving us forward in a sense. And streaming is a lot of that. The whole trial and error thing, the segment we had in last episode. Same thing goes with your how you're going to grow your community, because it does go hand in hand. Your community that you do start forming even from day one. Um, the first people there. I mean, you. What's great about content creation is you can really shape the kind of content that you want to make, and you can also shape the community that you want to try to keep building. Um, and so they definitely go hand in hand. The whole mindset of, well, I want to make content that I can be able to share with the community and get my community invested in. And back in the day, like, it's so funny. That's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you with Fallout 4. That's honestly funny to me. And even with the single player experience game, just like you said, you had people, you were like, well, this is awesome. This is a learning experience that's for me. And if the community comes through, or if people are interested in the kind of content, then there's a discussion to have there. There's questions that they have for me. There's questions that there's a back and forth there, that you get introduced to through streaming, which I think is really unique, very unique to streaming. And that is the separation I feel like between like VOD content that you'd find on YouTube and personal live streams. Um, but yeah, I think that's for my personal story. I think that's to the base, man. The You mentioned the whole thing of misconception of, well, why do people want to stream? When you ask them, they're like, oh, well, they see these huge streamers, and they're like, well, that's all it. Like, that's my goal from day one. I want to start a stream and I want to make a lot of money. Well, the thing is, none of these none of these people had that in mind when they first started their channels. That wasn't their goal. They weren't like, I'm going to start this just to make a lot of money. Their whole thing is from day one, I want to have a community that's based around their passion for whatever that may be. If it's competitive gaming, if it's I'm going to be, I have a skill at this game, I want to share that with the community that follows really competitive gameplay, and I want to be the best at this certain game that I can be. And there's a following for that. One thing that is awesome, I kind of mentioned just a second ago, that with content creation, it's very up to the person, up to the content creator to decide what kind of content they want to make, and have kind of the community follow whatever that content may be. Um, so you gotta enjoy it, like everything else. I know it's so cliche to say, but at the end of the day, like if you have a quote unquote job, or if you have a hobby, right? More we'll use more hobby in the sense here. But if you're doing a hobby, you don't really have hobbies that you don't enjoy doing. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And streaming or content creation is literally the same way. You have to enjoy it. Your hobby. You're not doing something you don't like as a hobby. So you gotta all it is making you have something you already thoroughly enjoy, and you want to use a platform to basically share or get what you're doing kind of out there for people to enjoy, and in return make content off of. And so from day one, I mean, that's really it. Don't go in thinking like, oh, I'm just doing this to get rich quick and all this nonsense that unfortunately sometimes gets advertised through the streaming universe and social media and things like that. But the perception can definitely get fuzzled. But I think from day one, yeah, just go in and have the mindset of sharing something you already really enjoy doing, and I think that will carry you through the struggles and the learnships of content creation.
I think it's a good point, especially with the perception, and then keeping the idea of what somebody might perceive streaming to be, and then what is really driving them, like what's motivating them to achieve that, or if they see something, they're like, "Oh, I want to do that." Um, it, it definitely takes some reflection too, and even if it's a learning process, as we'll discuss and encourage, it's good to keep these things in the back of your mind because then over time they may change for various reasons. Like I said, if you're starting off for one reason and then over time you're looking to shape your community and you're looking to see what you can do beyond that, then you're already thinking a little bit more in depth versus, oh, I want to stream, I want to hit the on button, and I'm gonna have thousands of people coming in. Money's rolling in, and I'm gonna be paid by game companies to go play their games and this and that. So like that's sure that could be a pipe dream of sorts, and not to be discouraging because if that's what you want, you could potentially obtain it. Just you have to keep things in the right scope of mind and understand that it's not an easy path. The idea that we're over here talking about our perspectives and our stories of what got us into it. Um, it's a similar story that I've heard from other friends who tried streaming. Let's say multiple years back when I streamed with some others. Not all of them continue to stream, so it's interesting to see over time as well. Um, a lot of things happen, and depending on your own motivation for streaming, if you have that passion, you will find a way. Even if, for example, like me, I've tried a couple different platforms and then ended up basically right back where I started, ironically. I learned things along the way. And again, that motivation or what was kind of like that day one has definitely stuck with me. To also go back to my story of me streaming a 24-hour stream on Fallout 4, I didn't do any of the main story. I went through the entire map. I collected a bunch of stuff, built a bunch of stuff, and just had fun with people coming into the chat and again trying to learn from others. And they'd be sharing different, like, oh, if you go here, you can collect this, whatever, XYZ. Uh, in that moment, it's basically like an echo of what's going on now. Just me always playing games, not necessarily the way somebody might normally play them. Somebody might try to play the whole story, and a lot of people were trying to get me to play the story back then. But I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna play the main story. This is, like, me doing everything but," and then once I have, like, 98% of the game done, I'll go back and do the main story. I've personally kept kinda that mindset in multiple games that I've played, and then just me, I guess, always making games harder on myself. I would say it's just been, like, this thing in the back of my mind if I can share the fun with others as well. So it's again good to reflect on these ideas as you stream and over time. I'm gonna go back, let's say, to when we were on Mixer. After I streamed for a year on Mixer, I basically said we were gonna go into like season two, and I kind of looked at it like season two is gonna be me going forward, not just learning about my stream, but looking to see if I could learn more about streaming, support others, and eventually Mixer kind of, got the boot, let's just say. But when we came over to Twitch, again, the irony of us never meeting on Mixer, I was very interested in keeping that idea in the back of my mind as well, looking to see who else is streaming, what else is going on, like let's say Twitch streams and Fallout streams and things like that. And then eventually we linked up. I would say it's interesting to see the growth and again me echoing season two, which was supporting others and learning from others, and then not just others in games, but like learning from other streamers. And then there's been a few streamers now, and we touch on this conversation every once in a while that some of the mixer streamers that have come over didn't stay and then have stopped. Some of them have stayed. So at the same time, I feel like we've had opportunities to learn from other streamers on this platform, and then at the same
Definitely,
time,
definitely.
you pick up on their own goals and why they're streaming, and you see the passion, like, over time. Like, these people are not stopping. So, a hiccup or a speed bump in the road was not, enough to get them to stop, and they're still going.
Yeah, and to me, that's super motivating, you know? I mean, even I give you props all the time, you know, we kinda joke around, but I mean, it's genuine when I say, you know, like, you with your YouTube content, right? Like, I'm super new to YouTube, and you with your consistent uploads and staying on top of your stuff, like, to me, that's motivating, and especially when I was just starting out, you know, watching other streamers and seeing what they're doing and seeing it's just getting ideas, not necessarily like copy and pasta, "Oh, I saw this guy do it, so let me do it." But it's almost like get motivated by that. If you see content creators getting creative with different ways to integrate things that they're doing with their community, or like if that aligns with something you want to do, we'll take notes on that. You know, look into what, get some ideas from, you know, from other content creators that have been doing what you quote unquote want to eventually do, as kind of motivation and as kind of like a roadmap of like, well, hey, these are really good, these are really cool ideas. Now, how can I implement that into my own stream? Another thing I do want to touch on for sure. You mentioned, you know, we kind of going back and forth between our timelines, like where we are today and where we were when we first started. Another, you mentioned perception. The other thing too is when you first started streaming, um, the stream itself of what you have as far as equipment goes and things like that, for me personally, was a very like baby step, one thing at a time kind of upgrade. You know, when I first started streaming, obviously I was working full time and I was very busy. I was actually, when I first started dabbling into streaming, it was very spare time. Hey, I'm gonna try here and there to try to slowly gathers what I need to to be able to have a production value stream that I can, you know, and day one, when you look back at content that you made during your first like month to 6 months of your first year, in my personal experience, it's drastically different. It was very bare bones. You know, I had the essentials of, you know, I was able to talk through a headset that had a microphone, I had a camera. I didn't know really anything about how, you know, quality settings or how to make it look as the best it can be. And so that was the whole, you know, trial and error aspect and the learning experience as you get into streaming. But I will say the setting the expectations, the amount of work that you do put in is what you can get out of it. And I say can get out of it because there's no like guarantee. There's no perfect equation. Like if you do this, if you follow everything we're saying on these podcasts, if you're following this list, then you will get what you want within the first year, 2 years, 3 years of streaming. It is different for the individual. Um, but I say that is when I reflect that is it's the amount of work that you put in because it is work that you have to put in. We have a, I mean, even to this day, we do have people come to us and we hear stories about people kind of just quitting streaming and kind of giving up and they feel defeated because they're not getting quote unquote the results of what they want, or if they want to start growing a channel and they're not seeing said growth, they kind of just feel defeated. And then I always kind of ask them, well, what are you working on? What are you working outside of streaming? What are you doing to improve anything you can? Because one of my quotes I say in stream all the time, or my like biggest uh, the biggest phrase I kind of put out there for new content creators is definitely focus on the things you can control and don't stress about the things you can't. And from day one, if you kind of have that mindset, well, what can I control? And that goes full circle of like, well, you know, watching other streamers, seeing the quality of other streams, how can I make my stream at least look the part, if you will, look like put the effort there because it is recognizable. People that go to a channel and they'll see a stream that has put the work in or that has put the effort there, it definitely there's definitely a difference there. And from a viewer perspective, they can definitely see that as well. Um, and I don't want to dive. I don't mean to dive too much into the whole streaming setups or anything like that. But it is all relative. These are things you can start thinking about day one, and with the expectations of, well, if I just stream gameplay with no camera and I don't have any mic interaction, or I don't even have a microphone, you can't expect to instantly start gaining this whole community that we're talking about. That you can start gaining. You can start building your community from day one, early on. Even if you have the zero people in there, and those are like the best days to figure out the self-reflecting that we were mentioning earlier. Talk, you know, talking to yourself, commentating, just being vocal and just running the stream as if there were hundreds of people there from day one. And those are like practice sessions, if you will, and it will get you comfortable in being able to put on a stream and be able to chat. And then when that one viewer, two viewers start to roll in, then you're already engaging in chat and you've been already practicing that. And to me, that is like the best advice that you can ever get as a very like beginning streamer, day one, first week streamer. Like these habits that you will eventually become natural to yourself, if that makes sense. I feel like you can start practicing these things day one. And I wanted to kind of reflect the chat or the I'm sorry, the podcast a little bit to more of the listener too. And so you heard kind of both sides of our experiences and how we got started. And Scruffy, how I was kind of throwing out pointers for just like the first week or the mindset to have in the first week. Do you have anything to add to that?
So to extend onto what you've already said, for that first week going in, I would think in the back of your mind, if you can consider where you're starting off, the numbers to be, scalability, and thinking on how you can improve over time is always good to be in the back of your mind. I wouldn't use it to be intimidating or anything like that, but to kind of add on to the idea of learning from what you see, practicing it and until you're in that comfortable position and it's already something that you're doing. And even if it's growing and it's amplifying, it's not something new. It's already something you're working on or practicing towards. But at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of people mention they think about streaming just for fun, and just kind of going live, seeing a few of their friends come through stream, be like, "Hey, we're checking out this game," or whatever the case is. I would say definitely try it out. If somebody's thinking about it, I would encourage it. Just know there's a lot to keep in the back of your mind depending on where you want to take the stream. And then the title of this, let's say episode, Why Do You Want to Stream, is definitely something to keep in the back of your mind as things grow over time, as your, let's say, routine or however you're approaching the stream changes over time. But going in very open minded. Um, and at the same time, I don't know, me, I guess being more of a pessimist, let's just say when I first started, I was like, even if I don't really go anywhere with it, just sharing it with a few friends, let's say it was enough for me. And I never expected, let's say, the stream or other things that I'm working on to grow to where they're at. But it's one of those things where, again, to echo what you've said, you put the work in and it'll show. It might not be these results you're looking for immediately. You'll realize they'll come over time. And then consistency is definitely going to be something that I would push for. And then all that kind of, again, loops back into consistency, can turn into comfortability. And then that can also turn into growth and amplifying what you're doing.
Yep. And to kind of to add a side note here again, we mentioned this in either episode 0 or episode 1, but anything that we talk about, we're just trying to keep things realistic and honest and share just what we personally have gone through. Again, it may feel different and it may be different for each individual, but it is a cool way for us to kind of share what we've how we started off from the early days and what was kind of in the back of our minds from early on, because just like Scruffy said, like that wasn't your day one either. You weren't planning to really grow this community that you have today, and definitely same, And I like I said, we mentioned the whole hobby thing. I just wanted to be able to share a hobby that I'm passionate about, and I'm grateful for the whoever would even remotely think that content was content. That's a win, man. And so when we talk about this stuff, we're not trying to take away any small W's. When you first get started, it is an exciting time, um, and we don't want to ever like take anything away from that. Just the realization, doesn't matter if whatever you do, everything in this content creation industry, no matter where you're making content, it does just all take time. And the instant satisfaction of doing anything, I'm putting in the work and I get this instant, payoff, or it's not directly like a one-to-one ratio, if that makes sense. And so everything that you do early on will affect things down the line, but everything in content creation just takes time. And that's just something you have to accept. And the earlier you do kind of get that mindset, I think you'll have an easier time with it. I feel like you won't just instantly have this overbearing thing like you're doing something wrong, um, because the whole first aspect of content creation, the first introduction, is a lot of just self reflecting and where you and your content or you and your passion or you and your hobbies fit in into your niche or the best representation of what you are trying to build as you or your content.
Yeah, well put. I would say that's a good spot to put a pin in our discussion of why do you want to stream? We're going to be touching on a lot of this throughout the rest of our episodes. Again, a lot of these go hand in hand. And as we were talking about before, some of these may evolve over time. And then as you grow, again, a lot more things can be amplified, if I'm going to also keep using that word. So it's definitely a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. But Gemini, what
And
do you
in
have?
the
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead. Oh no, go ahead.
I'll say, what do you have planned coming up? Any games you're looking forward to, or anything like that?
Yeah, so this week's pretty cool. I mean, we kind of had a lot going on. We have Gamescom that starts within just a couple of days. So next week we have Gamescom. We had quite a few Bethesda events this past weekend. So a lot of stuff was around 76. Obviously, we were playing a lot of Meat Week with our communities, kind of reflecting on this episode. Having events like that or having topics that we kind of have that we can make relatable to our communities is really cool because then anything that happens in the game industry or new games get talked about or new releases get talked about, you can kind of hype that up with your chat and then just kind of open the floor to discussions. This week it's gonna be a pretty normal schedule. I do stream at Twitch, or I'm sorry, twitch.tv/Gemini. And we are going to be live, just normal schedule this week of Monday through Friday. Saturdays, I'm going to kind of reserve for bonus streams. And then, kind of exciting news for this week is with Halo Infinite coming out holiday, because we still don't have a release date, hoping for release date at Gamescom, is what the word on the street is. Um, they are still flighting out the game, basically just the technical test previews, and it is rumored that there is going to be one releasing for this next weekend. So that will be kind of taking up a lot of my time for this coming up weekend. And if it does line up with what it's rumored to be like. But what do you have going on this week?
So besides the normal 76 grind, I did hit the end of the scoreboard. So for me, this is around that time where I get to slow it down a little bit on 76, jump into maybe a couple of older games, maybe even start hyping up Back for Blood with some Left 4 Dead. Maybe Throwback Thursdays might look a little something like that. I did beat Dark Souls 1 not so long ago, so Dark Souls 2 is on the menu as I continue to hype up Elden Ring next year. So that's going to be painful in its own way, but definitely rewarding when I finish that as well, and then work my way to Dark Souls 3. But yeah, we're chilling. Um, Nothing too crazy going on right now. I'm definitely interested to see what gets announced at Gamescom, and then even again with recent news from Bethesda, I'm pretty happy with what's coming around the corner. September should have some goodies, whether it's Fallout Worlds or whatever else they wind up throwing in there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. And then if anybody's trying to catch me on Twitch, I am live 7 to 11 Eastern most days of the week. And then we have our longer streams on the weekend, and that's at Scruffy 23.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.